This unlucky kid gets smoked by Truck-kun and wakes up in a wild-ass isekai world packed with chaos and magic. He thinks he's just some regular dude, but deep down, he's got a hidden trait that makes him straight up immortal. On top of that, there's some mysterious magic buried inside him. But it ain't waking up on its own. He's gonna have to grind through brutal training in a world crawling with deadly beasts. The story kicks off in a medieval-style isekai world, where a high schooler named Ryo is laid out flat inside a quiet, empty cottage. The place is bare, no furniture, nothing on the walls, just 2 old books and a knife sitting on a dusty table. Ryo gets up without even glancing at them, steps outside, and takes a breath of fresh air, looking around to find himself surrounded by nothing but towering mountains stretching as far as the eye can see. He stares at his own hands, then casually whispers, "Water, come forth," and sure enough, a little ball of water pops into existence and splashes gently in his palm. All of this began a few days earlier, when Ryo suddenly woke up inside a strange white void. No walls, no ground, just endless emptiness. Before he could freak out, a calm voice reached him, and an angel appeared right in front of him, reading his mind like it was written on a board. The angel reassured him that this wasn't the afterlife, though it definitely looked the part, and said it had been years since anyone passed through. At the same time, he gave Ryo some bad news: he had died, hit by none other than the infamous Truck-kun. Ryo, somehow not surprised, accepted it without a fight and figured out what was coming next. He was getting reincarnated. In his mind, he nicknamed the angel Michael and asked him what he should do in his next life. Michael, with a laid-back smile, told him to live however the hell he wanted. Ryo had always dreamed of living a slow and boring life, and once he got the green light, he got ready to start fresh in a brand new world full of magic, named Phi. Before sending him off, Michael gave him the rundown. In the world of Phi, only about 20% of people can use magic, and lucky for Ryo, not only can he use it, he's also got the strongest compatibility with the water element. Since he asked for peace and quiet, Michael placed him in the forest of Rondo, alone in a small cottage, where he could take it easy. The angel stocked a nearby ice house with 2 months' worth of food and left 2 books inside the cottage, one about the local plants, the other about monsters. As for magic, he reminded Ryo that it's all about imagination and training. No fancy rules, no chance required. And for now, there's no danger. Michael threw up a barrier around the place to keep forest monsters out. Now, Ryo gives water magic another go, and, with a little focus, conjures up a floating ball of water. No chant needed this time, which is pretty damn convenient for a main character. Ryo uses his magic to fill the bathtub with water. Though to be honest, the idea that it came from somewhere inside him feels kinda gross if you think about it too much. The water's freezing, so he needs to figure out how to heat it up. And for some reason, he goes for the oldest, most useless method known to man, trying to light a fire with sticks. He keeps rubbing and failing until he gives up, and starts thinking if there's a smarter way to get this done with magic. Pulling from his old chemistry lessons, he separates hydrogen from oxygen, which ends up freezing the water instead, turning it into solid ice. Now, with a chunk of ice in hand, he decides to try something different. He uses it like a magnifying glass, focusing the sunlight through it. And to his surprise, it actually works. He gets fire. With the fire going, Ryo heats the water and sinks in like he's been waiting his whole damn life for this moment. As he relaxes, everything in his mind starts clearing up, and it finally hits him that he could have just used magic to create hot water by reversing the process he used to make ice. But that's something to try later. For now, it's dinner time. While he eats, it hits him that the food stocked in the ice house isn't going to last forever. And if he doesn't start hunting soon, he's gonna be in trouble. The thought of going into the forest makes him pause though, because he knows monsters are out there, and he sure as hell won't survive with that tiny knife Michael left him. Which means it's time to figure out how to fight with magic. The next morning, he starts working on his first offensive spell, water ball, but when he fires it at a tree, it doesn't do a damn thing. So he tweaks the shape, tightening it into something like a sharp arrow, and after hours of trying, he finally manages to form a basic water jet. It's a cool step forward, but even that still doesn't leave a mark on the tree. The day after, he switches over to ice magic, hoping it'll hit harder. He carefully forms a crystal but struggles to lift it, because ice just doesn't move like water. Still, after a long day of grinding, he finally manages to summon multiple crystals and get them hovering in place, but he's still not able to launch them at the target. After a bunch of messy attempts and frustrating fails, He finally gets to a point where he can summon ice crystals in a flash. Trouble is, he still can't launch them with enough power to use in a real fight. But time's not on his side, so he figures he'll make do. He sharpens one like a spear and heads out into the forest, hoping for the best. Down near a quiet riverbank, he stumbles on some quartz and feels like he just struck gold. If his mana ever dries up, this might be his backup to light a fire. Not long after, while picking herbs, a wild boar locks onto him and charges straight ahead. Ryo freezes in place, too scared to move, and for a second, it looks like his second life's about to be cut real short. But that gut-deep fear of dying again kicks in, and he dives out of the way just in time. Thinking quick, he turns the ground to ice. The boar slips hard, and right then he throws up a few sharp icicles. One solid hit and the thing goes down. Not bad, though it's clear he's still got a long road ahead. Later, back at the cabin, he checks out the monster compendium. Turns out that boar he took down was a total weakling, barely ranked as a threat. That hits him kinda hard, but he keeps flipping through the pages. If the easy monsters in this world nearly kill him, what the hell happens when the real ones show up? And then comes the dragon entry. The book straight up says if you ever see one, just run. It won't help, but run anyway. Then he flips to the page on Akuma. Turns out it's even more terrifying. It says you don't need to run, you just need to pray you never see one. Real encouraging stuff. The book's doing a crap job at making him feel prepared, but he keeps reading, and despite everything that happened, he doesn't back down. The next morning, Ryo heads out again, ready for whatever the day throws at him. Things start off decent. He finds a fruit tree and takes a bite, and damn, it's good enough to make him forget all the stress from yesterday. But that piece doesn't last. Out of nowhere, an assassin hawk dives at him and knocks him flat. He instantly knows he's outmatched. The bird's packing invisible air magic, so dodging or blocking is a total joke. He remembers something from the monster book and makes a run for it. But how the hell is he supposed to outrun a flying beast? With nowhere to go, he plants his feet and fights back. Hits it dead on with ice magic, and when it crashes, he thinks it's over. As he gets closer though, the damn thing bursts out of the ice injured. Yeah, but still alive. One of its eyes got messed up, and maybe that's what makes it back off. The hawk finally flies off, and Ryo hits the ground, exhausted and grumbling that this quiet life is anything but quiet. After that mess, he tries to head home, only to realize he's completely lost. While stumbling around the woods, he spots something creepy, a Dullahan. No head, smoke pouring from its neck like it's puffing cigarettes non-stop. And it's just calmly grooming its horse. Somehow, Ryo manages to make it back. Days go by and he keeps training, fighting random monsters, catching fish, refining his water magic until it's sharp enough to slice through a mountain. He's finally getting the hang of this world. Still, every night, he heads back to that same spot where the Dullahan hangs out, not to win, but maybe to grow. There's nothing about Dullahans in his monster book, so either it's not a monster or it's too rare to be in the beginner's guide. After another rough fight, Ryo realizes he's not showing up just to prove something. He starts thinking maybe the Dullahan's been trying to help him get stronger this whole time. That night, the creature forms a sword out of ice and holds it out without a word. Ryo looks at it, gets the message, and takes it. As soon as he does, the Dullahan turns around and walks off, disappearing without a sound. The days roll by with nothing major happening, at least until that damn hawk shows up again. Ryo's out training like usual when he spots it in front of him. It's got one eye missing, so he knows right away it's the same one he fought before. Thing is, it wasn't black last time, and it sure as hell wasn't this big. Looks like the bastard evolved. The hawk charges at him with wild force, so Ryo throws up a 5-layer ice wall, but it smashes through without flinching. He stacks a 10-layer one, same result. Then he fires off an ice lancer, but the hawk dives right through it. As his walking stick drops, he grabs the sword he got earlier from the Dullahan and swings with everything he's got. It works. The hawk staggers back, comes again, but this time he drives the blade straight through it. As it crashes down, he walks up slow, looking at the thing with a bit of respect. That bird wasn't giving up easy. Took its eye again, and it still kept coming. Truth is, it pushed him to grow stronger, so in a way, he's thankful. Since it evolved just to face him again, he lets it die by his hand. After that, he moves along without knowing a dragon's been watching nearby. When it finally shows up and speaks, he's stunned he can hear it. The dragon seems relieved too, now able to use telepathy again. It asks if he's seen an evolved hawk, and when Ryo says he killed it, the dragon gets curious. Ryo shows him the sword, and the dragon immediately recognizes it as the sword of the Fairy King. That stirs more questions. The dragon asks what he did to earn that blade, but Ryo doesn't have a clue. With his curiosity satisfied, Ryo asks a few things too. They chat for a while until the dragon decides it's time to go. Before taking off, Ryo introduces himself, and the dragon replies with his name Lewin. Ryo's been living it up in this new world, having such a chill time that the angel who reincarnated him decides to check his slab again. That's when he notices something he totally missed the first time. Turns out, Ryo's got a hidden feature the last person didn't. He was born with the power of eternal youth. Meanwhile, back by the riverbank, a boy with red hair lies in the sand, looking like the next piece of this story is about to begin. Later on, Ryo starts craving seafood, so he heads down to the beach and ends up stumbling across a shipwreck. He spots a guy lying near the wreck, but after checking him out, it's clear he didn't make it. Then out of nowhere, he hears someone groaning, and for the first time since he got to this world, his eyes light up. Finally, another human. The guy's name is Abel, and he's stuck replaying what happened. Some giant octopus-looking thing attacked their ship during a storm, and next thing he knows, he's sinking fast. But when he wakes up, he's in Ryo's place, confused but alive. Right away, he gets up and starts looking around for the others. He steps outside and gets hit with more confusion, because this place looks nothing like anywhere he knows. While he's still trying to figure it out, Ryo shows up behind him. Abel's shocked, not just because he didn't sense him even though he's trained for stuff like that, but also because of how the guy's dressed. Still, he keeps it to himself for now. He thanks Ryo for saving him, and Ryo tells him straight he only managed to save one. The rest were already gone. Abel shrugs it off and says they were smugglers anyway, but before he can say more, his stomach starts making noise. Ryo tells him they'll talk over food and leads him back inside. While eating, Abel can't help himself. He finally brings up the clothes. Ryo says it's all he's got, no fabric around to make more. Abel suggests buying some but stops short, realizing maybe the guy's just broke. Ryo clears it up, says there's no one else around to buy from even if he had the money. Abel then asks if Ryo hunts his own food. He nods, points at the knife, but Ryo flexes with a bit of water magic, saying that's how he does most of it. That gets Abel's attention. Turns out only half the people in this world can use magic, and he's in the half that can't. That surprises Ryo, since the angel told him only about 20% could. Either way, Abel says he needs to head to the shore, wants to check something out for himself. While they're walking, Abel tells Ryo to let him handle the front if they run into trouble. Ryo says there's no need, but Abel insists he doesn't want to be the guy always getting saved. Ryo shrugs and tells him to do what he wants. When they get to the wreck, all the bodies are gone. Abel figures the sea or some monsters dragged them away. He thanks Ryo again, knowing he'd be in that pile too if not for him. He says he didn't find what he was looking for, and now he's thinking about reuniting with his crew. The storm must have dragged them way south, and he's got no clue which way to head. Then it hits him. He turns to Ryo and asks if he'd want to tag along. Ryo's caught off guard, and Abel adds that having him around would help him find his way back. And once they get there, he'll help Ryo land a decent job and live better. Ryo thinks it over for a while. Eventually, he agrees to be Abel's guide back to the city. Later that evening, Ryo stands by his garden, staring at the patch he spent so much time building up. There's a hint of sadness in his eyes as he thinks about leaving it all behind. That night, he tells Abel he's heading out to say goodbye to someone. The knight's clearly curious, but keeps it to himself and lets him go. At the lake, Ryo finds the knight Dullahan waiting. He tells him he's leaving the forest for a long while and thanks him for all the training. Then he draws his knife and says he's going all out tonight. The knight draws his sword in return, and the fight kicks off. Ryo rushes in with everything he's got, pushing hard, forcing Dullahan on defense. It's a brutal back and forth, and by the end, Ryo's running on fumes. The knight returns to the water silently, but just as he reaches the lake, he turns around and pulls a magical armor suit from beneath the surface, offering it to Ryo as a parting gift. Ryo gets all emotional, thanks him again, and heads back. By morning, both Ryo and Abel are ready to hit the road. As they take off, Ryo glances back at the forest he called home, and a wave of nostalgia hits him hard. Not long after, they run into a wild boar in the woods, and Abel tells Ryo to let him take care of it. He charges straight at the thing, sword out, then pulls off some slick combat move that turns the poor boar into a meat donut. Ryo's standing there impressed, asking what the hell that was. Abel tells him it's called a combat skill, something folks who fight with weapons rely on. They crash for the night inside a hollow tree, then get moving again the next morning. While trekking through the woods, they spot some lizardmen hanging around a swamp. Abel doesn't want to mess with them, says they're pretty damn strong, so they switch up the route. But Ryo can feel something off. Those lizard freaks are tailing them. Abel preps for a fight, but Ryo steps in, saying there's too many and he's gonna use magic. Abel figures Ryo can't do much without a staff, but then his jaw nearly hits the ground when Ryo fires off 4 icicle lances like it's nothing, wiping out a chunk of the enemy. Once it's all over, Abel asks what kind of spell that even was. Ryo says it's just the regular icicle lance. Abel shakes his head, saying his wind mage buddies can only toss out 1 spell at a time, but this guy fired 4 in a blink. Ryo just shrugs it off, says maybe that's a wind magic issue, cause water magic works different. Abel figures there's no point thinking too hard about it and says they better keep moving. But first, Ryo makes 2 ice cups and fills them with fresh water. Abel picks up on a different chant this time, and Ryo plays it off, saying he probably heard it wrong before. They keep going, and somewhere along the way, Abel tosses Ryo a coin. Ryo lights up, saying it's the first time he's ever seen money. Abel's stunned. He thought the kid was broke, but this is next level. He starts giving Ryo a little rundown on the 3 big countries in the central provinces. There's the Kingdom of Knightly, the Debuhi Empire, and the Handelu Federation. Ryo can't help but clown on the name Debuhi, saying it sounds dumb as hell. He keeps going on about how goofy it sounds, talking trash the whole time, until they finally reach a wide clearing. Out of nowhere, they spot a rock shift on its own, and Abel reacts fast, slicing it clean in half. Ryo throws up a water shield just in time to block a wave of flying stones. And that's when Abel realizes they walked right into a damn nest of rock golems. Ryo's confused for a second, thinking golems were supposed to look more human. But Abel ain't got time to explain. He charges at the closest one and blasts a hole straight through it. The thing doesn't even flinch though, patches itself right back up and keeps swinging. Abel backs off, saying their attacks aren't doing much. But Ryo's already cooking up a new plan. He forms this giant chunk of ice in the air and slams it right down on the golems, crushing them flat. Abel can't believe what he's seeing, says he's never even heard of a spell like that. Ryo shrugs and drops a couple more ice blocks till the rest of the golems are done for. After the dust settles, they find one golem still kicking. It's got a big shiny magic stone inside. Abel says that thing's worth a fortune. Ryo wants to dig out the rest from the others too, but they're all buried under ice and he ain't about to melt through it all. Either he's too lazy or he's just not in the mood. They keep walking till they stumble on this massive beast. Looks like a weird mix between a croc and a hippo. Abel calls it a behemoth, says it's one of those rare monsters you only hear about. Ryo's ready to go after it, but Abel shuts that down real quick, says taking on a behemoth is suicide. Right then, a pack of wyverns swoop in, and Ryo gets all fired up thinking they're about to watch some monster versus monster action. The wyverns start hurling magic-charged rocks at the behemoth, but the damn thing lets out a roar so strong it cancels their spells and knocks them straight out of the sky. Ryo figures it used some kind of magic cancel move. Later that night while eating, Abel brings it up again, says he's only ever heard of magic getting cancelled inside certain dungeon traps. That catches Ryo's interest fast. Abel mentions there's a dungeon in the city of Lune where they're heading, and Ryo gets all fired up. Pissed he didn't say anything earlier, he stares him down like he's hiding more secrets. Abel tries to shift the convo, asks if Ryo even knows about dwarves and elves, but Ryo just tells him to spill everything he's got. A few days roll by, and they finally reach a mountain range. Ryo says they'll probably hit some kind of human settlement once they make it past the mountains. Abel glances at him, wondering how the hell he knows that. Ryo debates telling him about the dragon he met who laid out the whole world map for him. But in the end, he keeps his mouth shut and throws out some vague line about it being knowledge regular folks wouldn't get. Not long after, they hear this strange-ass noise echoing through the sky, and both of them tense up, ready to scrap. That is, until a massive griffin swoops down from the clouds. The second they lay eyes on it, both of them damn near panic. Abel starts spiraling into a full-blown breakdown, but Ryo thinks fast and hurls a slab of meat into the air. Abel copies him without even thinking, and the griffin scoops up both chunks before soaring off like nothing happened. Once it's gone, they let out a shaky breath, both knowing that if it had decided to attack, they wouldn't have lasted a second. As they keep moving, Abel brings up how no one's seen creatures like behemoths or griffins for over a century. He figures the tall mountain range must have kept them away from human territory all this time. That sparks something in Ryo's memory. The wyverns they saw earlier had flown in from the north, meaning their nests gotta be close. Turns out he's right again. They stumble across a group of wyverns feasting on some poor beast. Ryo's ready to throw hands, but Abel tells him those things usually take a whole squad of at least 20 pros to take down. Ryo says they won't always be able to avoid a fight and asks if things would be easier if the wyverns couldn't fly. Abel says hell yeah, ground them and he'll finish the job up close. That's all Ryo needs to hear. He steps forward and throws out some dramatic fake chant before launching 4 ice lances straight into the wyvern's wings, pinning them to the dirt. Abel doesn't waste the opportunity, goes in swinging and finishes the job. But 2 more wyverns drop in out of nowhere. Ryo locks them down too, this time without chanting a single word. That makes Abel raise an eyebrow, clearly suspicious, but he lets it go for now. They scoop up the magic stones from the fallen wyverns and keep pushing north. They finally make it past the mountain range and step into the green hills, where Abel's taken aback that they not only handled wyverns but scored a ton of magic stones that'll bring in serious money once they hit the Empire. That's when Ryo suddenly wonders which country they're even headed to, saying he's fine with anything as long as it's not the Debuhi Empire. Abel tells him the Debuhi place is further north, which makes Ryo let out a breath of relief. Abel raises an eyebrow and asks if Ryo's got some kind of beef with them. Ryo says he's cool with the people and all, but the name is just way too cringe for him to deal with. Abel finds that reaction pretty weird, but whatever. Ryo then spots a road up ahead, and when he sees it runs from east to west, Abel realizes the mountain range they crossed wasn't your average bunch of rocks. Ryo notices he's thinking hard and tries to ask about it, but Abel brushes it off and points out that the road should lead them to the nearest town. Ryo lights up at the idea of finally sleeping in a real bed, and Abel tells him the town food's worth trying too. By nightfall, they reach the place, grab a meal at the inn, and Abel brings up the guild. He tells Ryo to register with the Adventurers Guild since the license works as ID, and it'll save him the tax when entering new cities. He reminds him he had to cover the entry fee with a silver coin, and Ryo claps back, asking if he's planning to log every coin he drops for a friend. That gets Abel a little embarrassed, but he keeps the lecture going. He explains how joining the guild means they'll buy monster loot and magic stones from him at a decent price, since only alchemists know how to work that stuff right. Ryo gets curious and wants to ask more, but the waitress shows up with his food, cutting him off, and when he sees what's on the plate, he freezes. He stares at the plate of curry, stunned it even exists here, because even in isekai anime, the hero has to go through hell and back to craft a good one. He was kinda looking forward to that journey too, but this one smells perfect, tastes just as rich and nostalgic as the one he had back in Japan. Before he knows it, the plate's clean, and he's ordering more without hesitation. The next morning, Ryo won't shut up about the curry, going on and on about how damn good it was, teasing Abel for hiding such gems from him. He jokingly tells him to spill all his secrets, which freaks Abel out for a second, though Ryo's just hoping he'll talk about the best dessert spots in town. Abel nervously says he's not into sweets and walks off, leaving Ryo wondering why he's acting so weird. They get back on the road, and before long, they arrive at Loon, a town surrounded by golden wheat fields. As they approach the gate, a guard named Nimmer spots Abel and nearly freaks out, saying he was reported missing months ago. Abel brushes it off, saying a lot happened, but he's back thanks to Ryo. Nimmer shakes Ryo's hand with genuine gratitude before pulling Abel aside to catch up. Once inside, Abel suggests they head straight to the guild. With Abel vouching for him, Ryo can skip some ranks right out the gate. Normally, newbies start at F rank, but if someone B rank or higher recommends them, they can jump to D rank from the start. Ryo nods, clearly interested. At the guild, the moment Abel steps in, the whole place lights up. Everyone rushes over like he's some kind of damn hero. Ryo's happy for him, seeing how loved he is, so he steps out for a breather, figuring Abel deserves this moment. While wandering outside, Ryo suddenly bumps into an elf girl. He's drawn in by her sharp ears and pretty face, but she's eyeing him just as much, focused on his outfit. She recognizes the coat he's wearing, saying it belongs to the Fairy King, and assumes the king must think highly of Ryo to gift him something like that. He has no clue what she's talking about, but before he can ask, she says she's in a rush and hopes they meet again, then disappears down the street. Ryo stands there frozen, trying to make sense of what the hell just happened. When Abel steps out to get him, he drags him back inside and proudly introduces him as the guy who saved his life. The others start thanking Ryo left and right, and for once, he doesn't mind being the center of attention. Right after that, Abel brings Ryo to the front desk and tells the receptionist to register him as a D-rank adventurer under his recommendation. The receptionist freezes for a second, shocked that someone from Abel's squad is vouching for another person, since that's never happened before. Abel says Ryo's not your average guy, and this one's different. The receptionist explains that even with a recommendation, Ryo still needs to prove his strength before getting the rank. Abel nods and says he'll talk to the guildmaster about that directly. They're asked to wait, and a moment later, the door slams open and the guildmaster Hugh storms in all dramatic, completely fired up the second he hears Abel's back. Abel quickly introduces Ryo and says he wants him to take the rank-up exam. Hugh says they can't just bump someone up without testing their strength, but Abel hits him with a straight face and says Ryo's even stronger than him. Hugh nearly laughs in disbelief till Abel drops the bag of magic stones on the table. Hugh stares at the pile and loses his damn mind. That much magic means they didn't just fight one or two wyverns. They cleared out enough to wipe a kingdom off the map. Abel casually tells him not to panic, since they hunted them all south of the Malefic Mountains, so the danger's already dealt with. Ryo gets curious about that mountain's name, wondering if it means anything, and Hugh's reaction says it all. He says no one comes back after crossing the Malefic Range, not even top-tier adventurers unless they've got a damn good reason. The idea that Ryo and Abel made it through is unreal to him, and without wasting another second, he bumps Ryo's rank up on the spot. Right then, Abel's old crew barges in, and things get emotional fast. They'd pretty much given up hope of ever seeing him again. Hugh gives them space to reunite while he steps out with Ryo to finish the registration. As they walk, Abel calls out and tells Ryo to wait for him at the front desk after he's done, saying he's got something special to show him. Once that's settled, Hugh leads Ryo to his office, telling him that Abel's crew, the Crimson Sword, is one of the strongest and most well-known parties they've got. Ryo's not shocked or anything, but he's kinda wondering if jumping straight to D rank is really fair. Hugh gets it, but says he's known Abel long enough to know that no way in hell could he solo a wyvern, which means Ryo clearly helped in that fight, and that alone earns him the rank. Right then, the receptionist shows up with everything needed to start the formal registration, and Hugh dips out, grumbling about the stack of paperwork on his desk. The receptionist Nina greets Ryo with a smile and starts walking him through the basics. She says that for the first 300 days, he can crash at the guild lodgings, but after that, he's got to figure out a new place to stay. Then she tells him there's a dungeon exploration course the guild runs for newbies, and Ryo doesn't even hesitate, signs up right away. She tells him to show up at the meeting hall 2 days later at 9 in the morning. That part catches him off guard, and he blurts out that they actually use clocks here. Nina just smiles and moves on to the real deal. She points to the crystal device in front of him and tells him to press his hand on it. Ryo follows her lead, and the crystal lights up, scanning his biometrics and transferring it to the metal plate on top. That little slab becomes his official guild card. Nina hands it to him and congratulates him on becoming a full-fledged member. Then they step out of the office. Abel's waiting and says he wants to treat Ryo to some new clothes and maybe a staff, calling it his reward for sticking with him this far. Ryo's cool with the clothes, but the staff part throws him off. Abel explains it's standard for mages, but Ryo shrugs and says he's fine without one. He can already cast magic just fine, and when it comes to close combat, he's got a sword. Abel raises a brow and asks where the hell that sword even is, and Ryo casually points to the little knife he's been carrying. That's when Abel really starts to question reality, but Ryo brushes it off, saying there's something way more important than gear right now. He needs solid info about how this world works before anything else. Not long after, he figures out that the hours, days, weeks, and months in this world run exactly like back on Earth, and they even use the metric system to measure stuff. At this point, he's convinced someone from Earth must have shown up way back and flipped the whole setup, which explains all the familiar things around here. Right then, Abel shows up from the store after covering what Ryo bought, then tells him the real fun hasn't even started yet. He drags him to a massive impact with his guild buddies, all throwing a party for his safe return. They go hard all night, and by morning, Nina's gotta pull Ryo out to show him where he'll be staying. She brings him to a room already housing 2 rookie adventurers. The brown-haired guy calls himself Mills, and the blonde one's Ito. They welcome him in, and once Nina bounces, Nils starts going on about how into her he is. Ito tells him to quit dreaming about girls way out of his league, then shifts the convo to ask Ryo about the guild lodgings. Before long, Nina swings back in with another new recruit tagging behind. The kid nervously says his name's Ammon. He looks pretty young, so they ask his age, and he says he's 16. His parents just passed, so he's diving into adventuring to survive. Nina tells them to make him feel at home and tells Ryo to meet her in the hall with Ammon the next day. Meanwhile, Abel's filling in his crew on what he's seen Ryo pull off using magic with no staff, freezing wyverns, and wiping things out with ice. One of them, Lynn, ain't buying it. She starts dropping logic about how magic doesn't work like that with range and placement. But Abel swears that's exactly how it went down. He even brings up how Ryo took out rock golems using blocks of ice, which Lynn flat out says should be impossible. Then Rihia, another teammate, chimes in, saying there's only one person who ever showed that kind of power, the Inferno Magician. But that name's mostly a bunch of rumors since no one alive saw them in action. Some of them start getting nervous, wondering if Ryo's that strong. What if he flips sides or backs the Empire? Abel shuts that down quick, saying there's no way, since Ryo straight up hates the name Debuhi Empire too much to ever support it. Back in the room, Ryo's cracking jokes with his new crew, thinking how wild life's gotten, but it honestly feels good. Thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, it makes all the difference.